Welcome back. This is going to be a little episode that we're going to put together for a car that we're doing, this Alfa 1969. Started life with a 1300 in there, but it's come from Alfaholics, so it's going to have a few of their sort of toys and bits and pieces that they do if you've ever seen them before. It'll have a 2-litre twin spark engine in there. We're going to fit half sort of roll cage, just a main hoop and diagonals back. We are going to debumper and put in the holes for the oil cooler in the front. The battery tray's got to go for a different manifold it has. Again, debumpered on the back. We've got to get rid of the fuel flap. It's going to have a fuel cell in the boot. Get rid of the reverse light hole on the rear valance. And hopefully when we strip all the paint off, we won't find anything too stinky. The door handles changed for a different style as well, which is kind of cool, so we'll get rid of those and then recut them for some new door handles. The paint on this is quite good. It probably looks really good on the camera, but we're going to have to bare metal the shell, because if you look up through, you might be able to capture them in there. It's basically micro blistered all over, which is moisture in the paint or in the primers, or it's come up from the surface of the metal. So the only way to get rid of that is to bare metal it, because the water basically soaks in, and every time it gets hot and cold, it makes the blisters come up and down. So that will be the first job, is to get this stripped back to bare metal and see what we can find. It feels quite solid all around the arches, but it is an Alfa Romeo, so it might all be paper mache. Yeah, and I think that is about it, really. I'm quite looking forward to it. It's going to be quite an easy job for us. Well, I say easy, small job for us. Normally we've got to do thousands of hours of metal work. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we're not going to have to do it with this one. It would just be a straightforward few modifications, repaint. In red, obviously, Rosso red, which is like every red ever made, Rosso red. Yeah, it's going to be cool. We'll keep you posted and have a nice day. Right, we've got the Alfa paint stripped, all the exterior of the car, and we've also cleaned it with some phosphoric acid all over. So we clean it with that, we brush it on, then we wash it off with water. And that is why it's got this sort of holographic look to the metal, and that's what happens after we've cleaned it with the acid. And basically that gets any little imperfections, any bits of rust, anything we've seen we're not happy with, it will clean that off and give us a good base to start on. We found a couple little bits of rust in around these rear quarter windows, and also there was a bit of a nasty repair on the front wing. So we removed that and then found a bit of inner sill missing and rusty. So we've repaired that as well. And we're now going to get a couple coats of epoxy primer on this in the boot and in the engine bay, so we can then panel it back up and start our paint prep. Alright, so we've got the little Alfa all-in epoxy primer now. We've done the shell and the panels. So the next stage for it will be to key it all up, and then we'll put the panels all back together, and we can start shaping up the outer body work and get everything to line up properly, so it gets it to the stage where we're happy with it, and move it through into the primer stages, but as soon as we got it out, the next job in here in the booth to do is wash all the walls down and do the roof filters and the floor filters, because they're not very nice and we need them to be in a decent, you know, quality for when we apply the paint to this to keep any dust down and get a nicer job. So, update on the Alpha is all the filler work, all the leveling, shaping up, everything's been done. We've just taken the panels back off to prime so we can do the shuts. So when we do all the filler work, all the panels are on. So to get this straight, we're looking at about 80 to 100 hours of rubbing down. So it's quite a while. We didn't film it, it's boring. So, what we're going to do now is polyester prime it. We'll end up putting about 6 coats of that on, which will equal somewhere around 9 litres of polyester. And then what we're probably going to do after that is concentrate on the underside before we put the panels back on and block it down. So yeah, that's what we're going to do now. Any questions?
What temperature is it in here?
Hot.
Yep.
We spray about 21 degrees. Yeah, just have a walk round. Yeah, we got 6 coats of polyester on now. Managed to do it in 7 litres, so that's quite cool. I'm just going to go around now and just dab in any pinholes that I can see. The sooner you do them now, the better it is in the long run. Like, so this will get flattened down and then another prime after. So we'll just go around and have a little look, see what we can find. Sometimes you get them come through it, see, I don't know if you can see it in the camera there, just a couple little pinholes here. So we'll just dab those in. There's a slightly larger one there. Just put a blob on that so it soaks in into the pinhole. Once it's baked off, that'll all pull back. And yeah, feeling quite tired now. Yeah. I'm just gonna put some guide coat over the Alpha now before we take it out the booth. The guide coat is basically just old leftover base coat that we have. We just put it all in a tin and then use it in this stage. It's easy to use. We may also see us use just some satin black aerosol. Sometimes we use the 3M powder, which you'll probably see later in the video when we start wet flatting the of finishing primer and things like that. So I'll put it on the time lapse and get a coat of guide coat on it. There she is, all in guide coat. I'll take this down. Basically, when we rub that down now, we'll be able to see high spots, low spots, any bits where, see it's still got production marks. And if you can see that in there, sort of shoulder those up, we'll be able to block those all out. And that'll go through to either 240 or 320 before we go into a final prime. But we're probably going to do the underside and the inside of the car first before we block this down.
White dust.
Update on the Alpha. We've now got it on the body rollers. Don't know if you've seen that before. So we've just got in where the bumpers mount on there. So it's still in the polyester with the guide coat on. We're doing the inside engine bay, boot and underside before we block that down, and then it will go into a final prime. Mainly because sometimes when you're twisting it and you're moving it, where you've got your rollers bolted on, they can like tweak it and maybe like mark the primer or even crack the primer. So there's no point getting it right the way through to its finished primer and then trying to put it on the body rollers, because you're just going to end up making some more work. So yeah, once all the engine bay, underneath, inside's done, we'll drop it back down and then it will stay on its trolley for the rest. It won't need to go back on the body roller, and we can start blocking down, put all the panels back on and getting it ready, see if we need any levelling up anywhere. Made a little bit of a compromise on this to what we'd normally do, because Peter's a good customer of ours and we've done a few cars from before. He asked if it's possible for us not to completely bare metal the inside and underside and just prep it and then spray over the existing. We wouldn't normally do that because it can lead into problems. It never really looks as nice as when it's all bare metal and painted. But that's what we're going to do. We've had to put the cage in and do that, and we've also added in the seat runners for the different seats. It's going to be going in there, so that'll end up all going into colour. And then on the underside, we've basically prepped it all up. Anywhere where there was some flaky paint or anything we didn't like, we've just cleaned that back and got it all ready. So that will be in a tintable Raptor liner or Cobra bed liner that we'll use there. So that'll be to the same colour as the car, but it'll be textured in hard wearing because he uses his cars, so they need to have good protection underneath. So we're going to drop it down now and get it in the booth and start getting it cleaned up, masked and ready for the Raptor liner. So we've had a little adjustment or something we needed to do to the Alpha now. We've decided we wanted to put some sort of seat belt or safety thing in the back, and we've ended up going with these mounts I'm putting in now, so we can put ISOFIX in there, because you're not really going to put an adult in the back because they're not a very big car. But the owner, Peter's got children, so we're welding these on here, and they'll bolt onto there, and you'll be able to click the seats in. Easy. It's just a little bit easier. We were looking into putting inertia belts, sort of trying to mount them up around here, and it's just gonna look a bit rubbish. We decided not to do that. We could have mounted them off of the roll cage, the half cage, but again, it just looks a bit rubbish. This will be hidden behind the seat. It'll be behind the seat foams. Yeah, that's what we're doing. That's the ISOFIX mounts welded in and bolted in, and it all works quite well. So we'll be able to just push that back. There they are, clicked in. So we'll get it stripped down now start getting it in the booth. Right, we've got the Alpha in the booth now, and it's all masked. As you can see, we're ready to do the underside, get that into the Cobra or Raptor liner. But first I'm just going to put a real light coat of epoxy primer over it to cover the bare metal areas, and anything I'm not too happy with, we'll do that as well. And once we've done all the underside, either tomorrow or we might leave it to over the weekend, we'll flip it back down, remask it, and then we'll paint the inside in the boot and in the engine bay into direct gloss. But we'll just go out here and see AD. So AD's here just mixing up the Cobra at the minute. So this is the tintable one that they do. So we'll end up putting a little bit down there, some of the direct gloss in there, so it'll be the right color. But we've also just mixed up, like I said, some epoxy primer, which I'm gonna go in and put a light coat on now, whilst Aid's getting the Cobra mixed up. Isn't that right, Aid?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do a fine job. Not quite like double cream yet.
Not quite. Not very red, is it?
No. Maybe it dries different.
AD's out, they're mixing up the Cobra, so I'm just going to quickly put this epoxy on, and then we'll give it 10-15 minutes and we'll go straight on with the bed liner. Oh, there's the colour. Rosso red.
Rosso red.
Who'd have thought it? On an Alpha. So we've got 4 tins of the tintable stone chip in there, so we'll probably go for about 10% the colour, see what it looks like. Obviously if it looks a bit pink, we will add some more. Stir in, maestro. How exciting. 82 guns on the case. We're going to go in now and start chucking some around, don't we, Aid?
Yeah.
Let's go on in then.
With both hands.
Or do you want me to give you? Do you want me to help?
Yeah.
All right, I'll help then. So we're both going to spray the underside now. Same time. One will start at the front, one at the back. So I'll put it on time lapse and hopefully it'll be it'll good. It'll look good. Hoping to do it all in one coat. We'll have a little view on it once we've done the first coat and might change our minds and put another coat on. All depend on how it looks, really. See how we feel. There she is then. That is the underside, all into the Raptor, the Cobra, the bed liner, the stone chip, whatever you want to call it. There it is. All done, so we'll give that a bake. As I say, we may try and flip the masking and do the inside tomorrow, or we may leave it until over the weekend and do it then. But it's come out cool, it's nice. Right then, we've got the underside masked up now. We flipped the masking around, cut the doors out, masked up what we already done underneath, and exposed the bits that we want to do next into the red without having the Raptor liner on there. Cut all the windows out, ready to do it inside. Like I said already in the video, this isn't how we would normally like to do it. Makes me a little bit itchy between the fingers. It's fine, so we agreed to do it like this. But normally I would want this all cleaned back to bare metal and primed and rubbed down, because our normal thing that we do would be to make the inside as nice as the outside. So we'll put it on a time lapse and film us getting some red. I'm going to do the same as what I done underneath the car. I'm going to put a real quick coat of epoxy on there just to seal it in over some of the bare metal areas and help the paint stick to the sound deadening. The epoxy is a really good adhesion, so that will help everything stick to where it needs to be. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll slap some red on. Adie's going to come in, we'll do it, both do it again at the same time. So one of us will be inside, one of us will be doing the engine bay and the boot. So let's get on with it, then we can leave it to dry off over the weekend. So I've just put the coat of epoxy on to help it adhere to what's there, and you can just about sort of see what I mean about why we normally like to bare metal and strip them right down. It's just not the nicest finish in the world. Yeah, Adie's out there mixing up the red now. We'll slap that on. Here we are then. Mixing up. What are we mixing there, Aid?
Bit of red.
Ah, bit of red. I thought it was red.
Bit of red. Rosso red.
See? I told you he was mixing it up.
Bit of
Said that in the booth. And we're going to use, for the red, instead of using the normal pot, which we normally use, we're going to use the PPF system. I'll show you a bit more about that in a minute when we fit them on the cups. So that's the PPF cups, the paint's in there, Ray's just putting the end on the guns. And basically, all it is the lids have already got strainers in them, so you haven't got to strain it to the normal ones. You screw them on like that, and the pot is soft. Poke the bottom of that, Ed.
Poke your bottom.
See? Soft. So when you paint, it vacuums the bag, and you can basically spray it upside down, so it's ideal for doing what we're about to do, because you can get right up and around the back of the bulkhead and all those tricky bits.
It's like magic.
It's just like magic.
Magic.
Alright, we're all ready to go. Abe's going to go in the boot and the engine bay, and I'm going to go in the cockpit and do the cockpit area. So we'll put it on a time lapse. Oh yeah. Yes. There we go, that's 3 coats of the red on now. Engine bay's nice and that. So the inside's come out alright, as good as we could expect with going over all the old sound deadening and things. But it's actually not too bad. What do you think, Abe?
Quite nice.
Yeah.
Quite nice.